Good morning, and thank you for having me here today. Mr. Muhtar Kent, Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Gary Fayer, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Ahmet Bozer, Executive Vice President and President of Coca Cola International, Ms. Kathy M. Walker, Principal Accounting Officer, Vice President, Financial and Controller. Thank you for having me here this morning. I'm new to the organization, and when I entered employment with Coca Cola, Mr. Kent asked me to draft a report on the economic indicators and the impacts of international trade on Coca Cola as an organization. He wanted me to do this, one, I'm sure, to test my mettle, and two, he feels that there is a need for Coca Cola to have a pulse on what is happening in the globe today. He understands that Coca Cola as an organization is a truly international corporation, having members, manufacturing facilities, and employees across the globe. Very few companies, whether in the US or in Europe, can advertise such a large footprint. So with that being said, we would like to discuss a few different focus areas. First would be the history of the company. Second would be water challenges, something that is very important to Coca-Cola. U.S. fiscal and monetary policy. Again, another external that Coca-Cola has very little control over, but it holds enormous implications for the future of the company. And then we'll conclude with a few recommendations that I've drawn as to how Coca-Cola can be the best. So first, we'd like to look at the icon, the iconic Coca-Cola bottle symbol. Classic white cursive script representing the roots that started this whole organization. The hands of a pharmacist back in the 1880s. The classic cursive, it brings back the good old days, and it reminds people that Coke's been there forever. The bold red background also elicits the sense of power, the sense of constancy. Coca-Cola has always been around, and it will continue to be around. This symbol right here, having not changed for many, many years. Minor updates here and there. But this embodies Coca-Cola. Founded in 1886 in Atlanta, Georgia, the company decided from the onset it was going to thrive. The only way it could thrive was on distinction. So it took a good product and it tried to set it apart. And it did this two ways. One was the bottles that it produced. The bottles that it produced, it took a different path. It needed to know that when the bottles were set out in a shop or in a store, people could pick it out. Oh, that's a Coke bottle. So it developed a distinct bottle, one that was separate from all of the other beverages available to customers. The only way it was able to do that successfully was to have a good product inside. So Coca-Cola ensured that there was a good product inside of its bottle. So Coca-Cola is going to follow its roots, follow the roots back from 1886. Going to honor the promises that the emblem, the red background, the cursive script, is going to promise that you're going to get a good product, set apart because of its good product, and then Coca-Cola is going to enjoy the customer satisfaction that it offers. Water. Something very simple we take for granted here in the States. But across the globe, many peoples and nations do not have access to clean and drinkable water. It's something very simple, but it's completely unavoidable in Coca-Cola. The formula for success includes water. H2O plus something results in a huge profit. What is that something? Is it the magic syrup that is distributed to the bottling companies, produced in great secrecy? I would beg to say yes, but also no. The question mark within this formula is much more than just the syrup. It's the way in which the companies run. There's so many other factors that enter into the equation. You have to take many into account, but there are a few that stand out. Regardless, you can see a huge growth pattern in Coke. This graph taken from 1962 to present was just pulled the other day. You can see that the enormous growth that Coke has enjoyed, increasing share prices, are due to shareholders and those not holding the shares having a high demand for the company. What does that mean? It means that they trust that the company is going to continue to grow. You can see the slight dip around 2008, not nearly as severe as some of the other companies in the US, across Europe, endured. But then Coke has climbed back out. Coke has been a stable sense of America. It's an international symbol of enjoyment. And this is reflected in the growth of the company. How do we continue that growth? Growth can't just be achieved by maintaining the status quo. One of the major factors is a reduction of costs. Coca Cola has made it a priority to take care of its employees. So that's not an option. Reducing employees is not the first step. The first step would be, how can we reduce a major cost, which is transportation? Water is heavy. As many of you will know, you may not know the actual density numbers, but here they are. Pounds times miles equals dollars. How do you reduce those dollars? Can't make Coke lighter. Can't take water out of the equation. So what you do is you set up plants nearby the growing markets. By doing this, you can reduce the distance and reduce the cost of transportation. Coca-Cola has been doing this for years. As we'll cite later, we have bottling companies, over 275 partners with bottling companies across the major 6 regions of the globe. Coca-Cola is already doing this. But a key trait of Coca-Cola is its enduring prioritization to make sure the customer comes first. They believe that the customer equals the company. Taking care of the customer, not just as a customer, but as a partner in the community, is how Coca-Cola has continued to grow. Collective capitalism is a prime example of one of Coca-Cola's prime statutes. Neville Isler, previous chief executive officer, coined this phrase in a way and made sure that Coca-Cola lived by it. His belief was that community, when combined with Coca-Cola, could produce financial stability, it could result in a healthy community, a united community, which would provide Coca-Cola with a vibrant market to tap into and provide its product to. Without this vibrant market, you wouldn't have any customers. And without any customers, you don't have any profits. So consequently, the prioritization of collective capitalism is what has allowed Coca-Cola to thrive. Something as simple as drilling a well, as making sure a community has clean water that Coca-Cola can also use. But Coca-Cola, in that case, has just given the community new life and has offered them a chance. The second key factor that's going to impact Coca-Cola in the near and far future is something called fiscal austerity. Fiscal austerity is a conversation that is had in the seats on Capitol Hill. It also concerns economists and companies across the globe. There's been discussions going back to the gold standard. There's concerns of the U.S. being able to meet its debt obligations as the deficit continues to grow and the dollar continues to potentially weaken. This phrase, fiscal austerity, holds enormous implications in the near future. These figureheads, the chairmen of the Federal Reserve, Mr. Ben Bernanke, Mr. Alan Greenspan, Ms. Janet Yellen, these are the figureheads that are going to shape the monetary policy of the U.S. And this monetary policy, currently very loose monetary policy, allowing for easy access to capital, is also resulting in a potential depreciation of the U.S. dollar, as nations around the globe search for another standard currency. The U.S. dollar is set by the wayside. In the near future, there's a potential default which would hold incredible ramifications across the globe, and it could make the 2008 crisis seem like a game. So with that in mind, we need to ensure that we're prepared for another 2008 scenario, the subprime crisis. We all remember where we were when Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, AIG, all of those major players in the financial markets began to crumble. We've since began to climb out of the hole that was the 2008 recession. Unfortunately, that climb has been accelerated through the printing of dollars. And with the excess printing of dollars, simple economics deems that as the supply of the US dollar continues to grow, the value of that dollar will subsequently fall. As a result, purchasing power of that currency will no longer be what it once was. The current stance, those three figureheads, namely the last two, Mr. Bernanke and the current Ms. Yellen, their belief is they can print the debt away. Their hope is by continuing down this path of loose monetary policy, they can ensure the United States will be able to dig out of this debt, pay its debtors, allow time for the growth of the U.S. economy, and consequently find themselves back at the precipice. The unfortunate reality is, as seen on this chart, the purchasing power of the US dollar has gone down significantly in past years. This significant decline, as discussed a few minutes before, is precipitated twofold. One, by lack of trust in the dollar, and two, by an excess supply of it. The combined result of these two factors could spell a complete change, complete shift in international finance, as the US dollar no longer becomes the standard. If this is the case, Coca Cola will be hugely affected. Headquartered in the US, the impact of a deflated or devalued US dollar will have very far-reaching impacts on the purchasing power of supplies, although it could impact in a positive way the ability of Coca-Cola to sell. The immediate impacts will be rather severe. How do we prepare for such a crisis is rather simple, and once again, Coca-Cola has already taken steps to prepare for it. Hedging is the way to prepare. Covered interest rate parity, currency swaps, and direct presence in developing markets where there's much potential for growth. These are all means of diversification, which allows Coca-Cola to prepare for the worst and take advantage of the best. Right now, there are over 275 bottling partners across many different regions. These bottling partners allow the Coca-Cola industry, Coca-Cola Company, to tap into various markets and ensure that the U.S. currency isn't the only currency that is held. This allows Coca-Cola to diversify and ensure that it's hedged against any future devaluation of the dollar. We need to ensure Coca-Cola stays with its roots. Remember the founding fathers. Remember the standards that they set forth for us. Quality set us apart and allowed Coca Cola to grow. We will maintain the status of beverage champion if we ensure that we stay with our roots. Thank you.